Hey guys, it's Ben here from Find a Way Photography. Thanks for joining me on another episode of The Fix. Today we'll look at a photo that I took here in Wanaka, New Zealand, where I'm recording this video right now actually. And it's called High Above Lake Wanaka on Coromandel Peak, because I like to get really creative with my names, so there you go. This one, we'll take a look at it quick. So this is called Coromandel Peak, as you can tell by my creative photo title, and this is Lake Wanaka. And this is actually quite a famous spot. Lots of people go here to take wedding photos and that sort of thing, and it's all over Instagram and stuff like that. And lots of people actually think it's Roy's Peak, but it's a separate peak called Coromandel Peak, and lots of people hike up Roy's Peak, which is basically, if you turned around from where I was standing, you'd be looking right at the top of Roy's Peak. And lots of people head there and do that hike and actually expect to get this view, but it's a little bit further down the ridge, and there's actually no hiking trail. This is a little bit of a trail, but it basically just goes up to a helicopter pad where lots of people fly in. I'm not quite with any sort of budget to afford a helicopter ride, so I actually parked down at the Roy's Peak parking lot and then hiked up, just kind of up the rough grass and that sort of thing up to the top, so no trails or anything, straight up the mountain, which was a little bit of a tough one, but slept on the top and then got this view in the morning, so I wasn't complaining at all about that. So it's a really cool spot, and we'll get into a little bit more about how I edited this photo and what the idea was. But yeah, it's pretty cool spot, and we're pretty lucky to be down here in New Zealand, living in Wanaka. It's pretty incredible here. So, and there's actually a spot way over in the hills here. You can see a road cutting up across this mountain. This is called Mount Burke, and you can actually walk all the way along here. It's private land for part of it, but one day I actually rode my bike all the way from here, which is Isthmus Peak, all the way along this ridge, and then dropped down here back into Wanaka, all on my mountain bike. So that was pretty cool, and I've got a post on the website. It's called the Glendine Ridge, so you can look for that one and see a little bit more about the story behind that adventure. But while we're here, let's focus on what we're doing and not get sidetracked like I like to do. Let's focus on this one. So the idea that I had with this one is, you can see it's kind of high contrast and that sort of thing. So actually, let's look at a before and after. So if I hit Y, you can see before and after. So it's kind of a plain photo. I took this one just after sunset. There's no color left in the sky or anything. I think it was about 9 o'clock in the morning or something, and it was starting to look a little bit flat. So I wanted to just kind of get a little bit creative with the editing, and there's quite a bit of dark in it, so it's high contrast, a pretty heavy vignette all around. But what I was really focusing on is the blue of the lake, of the water, and the yellow of this grass and the tussock and that sort of thing. So it's just the contrast and the complements between the yellow or the gold and the blue. And then me standing there in my red jacket that I always seem to have with me, that I'm always wearing for photos because it stands out. So we'll look at a little bit of how I kind of accomplish this in the settings and that sort of thing, and go from there. So here's the same photo that I've reset, and first thing you'll notice is that it's cropped. I always crop quite wide, just because I find that's just the style that I quite enjoy doing, is kind of the wide landscape panoramic kind of photos. So something like that I think is what the other one was, just so you can still see the trail leading up. You can still see a bit of the sky, but we've cut out some of that boring stuff. And then we've got the ridge just falling off down into the lake, so we're going to isolate this and kind of make this yellow, and then make the blue of the lake pop. And kind of, you can see I'm looking out in this direction, so we want to just follow that line and kind of make this all pop, and make these islands and everything kind of stand out against the water. So that's the idea. I'm just kind of winging it, so we might not get the exact same look as in the other photo, but we'll try to keep it as close as we can. And I like to try to establish my vision for the photo before I even start digging into it. So what I just kind of talked you through is what I'm aiming for, and I try to do that before just jumping in and editing a photo, especially if it's something that I want to put any effort in. I'll just kind of take a minute and figure out what I want to actually accomplish with it. So we're trying to get the blues, so I'm just going to drag that down a little bit and get the blues there. In a little bit, we can always come back and warm this up. We'll see how it ends up looking anyways. Exposure is pretty good. Contrast, I know I said we're going for high contrast, but I'm still going to just decrease that a little bit, and then we'll bring it back with some of the blacks and get those dark shadows and that sort of thing. So something like that, and then the whites, we'll just push the white so that it's near the edge of that histogram. The other thing is you can hold down Option and see when those whites start to come in, and that's holding down the Option key and sliding that, and you can see what that does. Highlights, let's bring that down a bit, and then shadows, maybe bring that up, something like that. I think I might have gone a little bit too far on the white balance, so let's just bring that back a bit. And then clarity, a bit of clarity might help, especially brings out some of the features down in the islands and that sort of thing. And then some vibrance. And lots of that blue color is coming through from the vibrance. So let's not go too much, but something like that. I'm just going to play around with the sliders instead of getting into the tone curve itself. And I do like what that's doing back in the mountains, so I'll bump that up a little bit. Brighten up the whole thing with that, so bumping up that tone curve, and then let's see what happens when we just kind of maybe drag that down. And this is kind of giving it that classic S shape that you see in a lot of tone curves, so I could do that by hand just by dragging it, but sometimes I find that's a little bit easier. The red is pretty important, so let's bump that up. Bump up the luminance as well, make it kind of shine a bit more. And then what's going on here? So let's just bring that down a bit. So that's just kind of affecting the grass on the side, making it a little bit orangey, as well as that. So kind of takes that kind of glary, harsh sunlight out of the grass a bit. And then let's maybe, don't want to go too far, but I think even that isn't overdoing it. And then a bit of yellow as well, so we get that kind of glowing gold color. What else can we do? We've got no greens really. Blue is pretty good. And I don't want to go too much, but maybe we'll add a bit of saturation and see what luminance I'm just gonna leave where it was. Split toning, let's just breeze over that. We'll do a quick sharpen on this one. If you've watched any of my previous fix videos, you'll notice that I kind of do the same thing every time for sharpening, the same process. So I'm not going to go through it too much here. But I think something like that. And then we'll mask it out so that we're only sharpening where we want to sharpen, so get the lake and the sky and all those flat spots out of it. Cool. ISO 100 at a pretty fast shutter speed. There's probably not that much noise in there, but it's nice to clean it up a little bit anyways. Remove CA, might as well. And then we had a pretty heavy vignette in that original photo, so we'll bring that back. Let's see what that midpoint, just open up that midpoint a little bit. Cool, so I think that's looking pretty good. We'll just do some local adjustments now. I'm actually going to bring that vignette there that I did at the very end, brought it some darkness into these corners. I'm going to come back, reset that, and I'm just going to paint in this just to kind of isolate this area and then see what we can do to kind of spice it up a little bit and make it glow. If I press O, we'll see the overlay of what I've just painted. And so that's showing up as red, and so that just helps me kind of figure out where I'm painting. And I'm not being careful at all or anything, I'm just kind of chucking some paint down, see what happens. I've got a pretty high flow, but we'll just bump that up as well, get the job done. Cool, so something like that, and then I'll just erase a little bit there. And a little bit there. Easy. Press O again to hide that overlay. And now I know exactly what I've got selected, so let's see what we can do. So maybe a bit of where to start. Bump up the exposure to brighten that up a little bit. And you can see that's actually done a lot already. Contrast, I'm not really sure how that's going to... Yeah, something like that. And let's see what... again, bringing that deep color back in. Clarity... Tiny bit of clarity. What else do I need to add here? Highlights and shadows I think is going to have a pretty big effect, so I'll be... I think that just breaks it up a little bit, which is nice. And then shadows, let's lift up those shadows and give it a glow. See, maybe I'll just drag that down a bit. And then temperature. So I think if I do something like that, it still looks natural enough. So we'll leave it like that. And let's just click that on and off so you can see the difference. So pretty major. I usually don't like to do, that drastic of effect, just to try to keep things as natural as possible. But in that case, I think that looks pretty cool. What else can we do? Let's jump into the radial filters. Let's get back to our extra pop. And let's just kind of bring up the glow in the center there. So I'm just going to put a couple on here, change the shape a little bit. Something like that. And then maybe one back in this area. And this one I'm just going to fine tune by myself. Let's go exposure, bring that up a bit, but I want that contrast back. So let's just kind of find a balance here. And then the highlights, we'll leave that for now. Contrast kind of makes the edges of those islands pop a little bit, so I'm pretty happy with that. Saturation isn't doing that much. Let's turn that on. Turn that on its edge a little bit, something like that. And so just to kind of make, where you see me standing there looking out this way, and just to kind of light that up a little bit and draw your eye to that center where you've got all these details in the islands and that sort of thing. I think we're getting pretty close. If I hit Y, we'll see. So this is actually the one that I posted as photo of the week, and this is what we've accomplished so far. So you can see it's actually quite similar to what we had there. I'm not able to show you the original one because I'm working off a virtual copy, so it just keeps going back to that one, but it gives you an idea. I accidentally hopped out of the develop module, so we'll get back into there. All I really want to do now is just isolate basically me standing there. I'm going to reset this, and I just wanted to bring down that contrast. Just a little bit. I might regret this. I might go back and change it, but I just found it quite contrasty, so maybe I'll just a tiny little adjustment to see if I can clean that up a bit. Good enough. You can see a pretty distinct circle where I've done that. So instead, I'm just going to brush, and instead of having that circular shape, I'm just going to kind of feather it out. Something like that. I'm just going to bring it in along the water, that sort of thing. Bring that up. I had that flow way too high. Put something like that just to kind of feather it out. And then it just kind of fades in. just like that. Easy. And let everything load and settle into place. And that's the final photo, just like that. I think last thing I'm going to do is just a little bit of dark in the bottom, just like this, and I'm just going to do a tiny bit down here, just to fade in that corner a little bit. Cool. So I'm pretty happy with that. So let's go full screen. Take a quick look at what we've done. So that's it. Just adding a bit of contrast to it, bringing out this gold in the grass, drawing the attention to the center of the lake where kind of my gaze is directing. A pretty heavy vignette around the corners to darken in the corners, and that's it. So thanks again for joining me for another episode. I hope you've learned something. If you have any questions, let me know, and we'll see you on the next one. Thanks again.